Stripped, Christina Aguilera's second album of new material became an era-defining record in the early 2000s and made her one of the biggest pop stars on the planet. Over the years since its release, it has become a benchmark for artists transitioning from pure pop to a more mature sound. So what's the true story behind the album? Why did Christina turn down millions from her record label to release the album sooner? Why did Dirrty stall in the US? And could it have been a bigger hit there? Which major recording artist wrote a classic song for Christina but instead decided to keep it for themselves? And did Linda Perry really offer Beautiful to Pink first? So many questions, let's find out. Stripped was released in autumn 2002, a whole 3 years after the release of Christina's self-titled debut. Yes, she had recorded a Christmas record and Spanish album in between, but her record company RCA were especially keen for Aguilera to release an album of new material, a proper follow-up to her debut. She was probably the biggest artist on that label at the time and a vital source of revenue, so of course they were eager to get her back out there releasing new music and earning money for them. So much so they were willing to give Christina a multi-million-pound check to hurry up and get the album done sooner. In an article with W magazine, Steve Morales, one of the writers on the album, says that the label wanted to give Christina a $5 million advance if she released the record in 2001, a whole 12 months earlier than it eventually was. Aguilera of course refused, preferring to take her time making the record and getting it just right. She was already a multi-millionaire at this point, so wasn't in desperate need of the cash. And Christina's gamble to delay the album paid off handsomely, with it eventually selling 12 million copies around the world. And Christina was so hot in the early 2000s, everyone was clamouring to write for her, including a certain Alicia Keys. And speaking to the website Stereo Gum in 2020, Alicia confirmed that she did initially write her classic song If I Ain't Got You for Christina. In the interview, she talked about why she ultimately kept the song for herself. She reached out and was like, "Would you write something for me?" And then it came through so many emails. What a voice. So time passed and I hadn't written the song yet. And the label was like, "Do you have anything for Christina?" I remember I had just recently written If I Ain't Got You. I told my A&R at the time, "Let's play her If I Ain't Got You." He said, "Are you crazy? We're not giving her that song." I was like, "Why not? I'll write 100 more of those. It's fine. I think she should hear it." But I thought, fine, I'll go write another song. So I went off and wrote Impossible. But I will never forget that I would have given away If I Ain't Got You. Alicia and her record label must have realised they had a future classic on their hands and it was in their best interests to keep it for themselves. If Christina had gotten hold of If I Ain't Got You, it more than likely would have greatly altered both hers and Alicia's careers. Stripped would have probably sold another 4 or 5 million copies and her career would have went stratospheric. And Alicia would have ended up with one of her most famous songs missing from her repertoire. But I'm sure it all worked out for the best. Whilst Dirrty proved to be a big hit around the world and topped the charts in Britain, Christina's new musical direction initially wasn't well received by American audiences, with the lead single from the album stalling at number 48 in the country, which needless to say was a major cause for concern. After the huge success of her debut album, her record label were concerned that Dirrty's relative failure could sink her new album right out of the gate. So RCA quickly shifted their focus to the album's second single, Beautiful, and started to push that at radio instead. In an article with W magazine from 2022, Ron Fair, Christina's A&R man, had this to say about the song. Dirrty started to falter on radio. There was this narrative of, the sexuality's too much, I don't want my daughter to see this, all this crap. The decision was made inside RCA to move to the second single. I learned later that moving on prematurely from Dirrty had a high cost for the album's forward momentum. The record was in the top 20 on radio, but there was some pushback. Beautiful comes out, immediately becomes a gigantic hit and overtakes Dirty on the chart. In the meantime, research came back on Dirty showing that it was a hit and they'd moved off it too early. When I look at the story of Stripped, I think it would have been very different if they had the courage to stick with Dirty. We would have had back-to-back smash hits instead of just Beautiful. So maybe Dirty could have been a big US hit if RCA had held their nerve and given the song a bit more time, but I suppose that's a lot easier said than done. During sessions for Stripped, Christina had co-written a song called Miss Independent with collaborators Rhett Lawrence and Matt Morris, although the song was never completed and left off the album. Sometime later, Clive Davis was collecting material for Kelly Clarkson's debut album, which was to be released in spring 2003. Unbeknownst to Christina, Rhett Lawrence offered Miss Independent to Clive Davis for Kelly. In his book The Soundtrack to My Life from 2013, Clive says that initially Christina was upset, but the situation sorted itself out. And awkwardly, the song was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Performance at the 2004 Grammys in the same category as Christina's Beautiful, but Christina went on to be the winner. And Clive mentions the situation on a number of occasions in his book. Eventually, everything was resolved between Christina and Kelly, but it was a bumpy ride for a while. And clearly it has been long forgotten, as Christina recently appeared on Kelly Clarkson's chat show and there seemed to be no hard feelings. Rumours have circulated for years that Christina's classic song Beautiful was in actual fact offered to Pink first. Linda Perry, the writer of the song, was working with both singers during that time period. Well, to make sense of the whole situation, I best give you some background. After Linda had had a big hit with What's Going On as part of her group Four Non Blondes in '93, her career went pretty quiet for the rest of the 90s. In fact, Linda and the group were widely considered to be one-hit wonders. But it was Pink who sought out Linda Perry to write with her on her second album in the early 2000s. Linda co-wrote a number of songs on the album Misunderstood, including the huge hit Get the Party Started. That album would turn Pink into a music superstar and put Linda back on the map in the music industry. But the two fell out soon after, with many speculating Linda working with Christina played a part, as Pink and Christina weren't on good terms at the time. In an interview with Rolling Stone in 2019, Linda had this to say about the whole situation. Alicia and I lost our relationship because of Beautiful. She thought she could keep me all to herself and not have me work with anybody else. Because I worked with Christina, she got really annoyed. Obviously, on top of it, she didn't like Christina at the time. Alicia was fighting with everybody. I get her point, she wanted to be the anti-those girls. And in an interview with Howard Stern from 2023, the shock jock asks Pink about Linda Perry offering Beautiful to her. Howard also said that Linda Perry had said she didn't hear Pink on the track, to which Pink just laughed and again didn't confirm or deny. Pink did, however, have this to say about the song during the interview. The song ended up where it was supposed to be. Christina sounded incredible on that song. When I was working with her, I felt betrayed when she went on to work with everybody else, because she became the pop hit maker. I thought what we had was special. Pink didn't work with Linda again after 2003's Try This, although it does seem there were other factors at play in their falling out. So I would deduce from that information that Pink was aware of Beautiful's existence, but Linda thought that Christina would be a better choice for the song. But Pink and Linda did collaborate again in 2017 on a track called Halfway Gone, which appeared on the soundtrack for Served Like a Girl. And I should also mention that upon the album's release, a song on the record called Makeover bore an uncanny resemblance to Overload, the 2000 hit from the British girl group the Sugababes. After Christina and the song's co-writer Linda Perry were threatened with legal action from the Sugababes team, all the songwriters for Overload were eventually credited to Christina's song, and their names included on later pressings of the album. I wasn't able to find any more solid information on that story, so I think I'll leave it there. Stripped is an iconic noughties album which marked Christina's commercial peak. With its sex-positive messages and songs calling out misogynistic double standards, this forward-thinking record was years ahead of its time. And Christina's video for Beautiful, with LGBTQ+ representation, was also hugely groundbreaking in 2002, especially for such a mainstream artist. Stripped is a classic album which still stands today and has become a benchmark for coming-of-age records. Christina's new musical direction initially wasn't well received by her. In an article with. And I should also mention that upon the album's release, a song on the record called Makeover bore an uncanny resemblance to the song Over. And don't forget to check out my other video which explores why Stripped was Christina's commercial peak. Thanks for watching.